So when we were traveling in our 5 states and 5 days trip, we went to Florida. And while there, we heard about a story we thought you'd want to hear more about as well. It comes out of that wealth of stories, the hundreds of children literally lost by Florida state foster care system. Chris Cuomo decided he would investigate, go looking for some answers about why this keeps happening. And here now he has uncovered another tragic story of another little girl lost.
Marissa Karp overcame learning disabilities to earn good grades in school and wanted nothing more than to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. But her mother died when she was just 11, sending Marissa into a downward spiral. Her troubles landed her in this foster care shelter, where her life was supposed to start getting better. But instead, Marissa went missing last April, and her body was found 5 months later at the bottom of this lake with a bullet in her head. Marissa Karp was only 17. Marissa's case isn't unusual. The Florida Department of Children and Families can account for 380 foster children.
They end up dead. They end up being raped. Some of them end up as prostitutes. Some of them end up in delinquency facilities.
294 of the missing foster children were classified as runaways. Take a look at one of these shelters. It's on the grounds of a state mental hospital and looks like an office building. Where can the kids play? This walled and fenced area that looks like a prison yard. State records show in the first 75 days it was open, this shelter had 85 kids run away. 15 others were arrested for assaults on other children and staff. Others were found with drugs and alcohol. There was even an allegation that a staff member inappropriately touched a foster child.
We used to go around acting like we're tough, but we were all crying inside.
Some foster kids say it's the conditions in shelters and foster homes that make them run.
You go into a DCF office and you see 20 kids sleeping on the floor. No one cares for them. They want love so bad they don't know what it's like.
The state of Florida hired a consultant to investigate the system. Now, according to him, in 3 out of 4 foster children's cases, the state acted unacceptably. Florida officials declined to comment on the serious problems in the foster care system. And as for the 294 children still missing, officials don't know if they're dead or alive. Each has a face and a story. Remember Marissa Karp? Her story ends in this cemetery near the Everglades. The 17-year-old is buried in this fresh grave next to her mother. Child advocates say Florida officials should be ashamed of how some children have been treated.
You look into their eyes, they're no different than your children and my children.
Again, the tragedy goes on. Chris Cuomo joins us now. The first reaction is, why doesn't government do something?
Absolutely the reaction. Outrage. You know, we've known about this in Florida. We've asked for something to happen. Nothing has happened. Why? It must be the politicians' fault. You know, I grew up in a political family. I know what it's like to want to blame the politician. But you have to understand the reality of a situation like this. Government, believe it or not, you know, some of us don't believe it anymore. It's a reflection of what the people want. If you want action, if you want something to be a priority, you have to make it one.
There's been an outcry. I mean, press, people have said, fix it, fix it.
To the politicians.
Yeah.
But the system doesn't really work that way. Ultimately, the people have to control it. If you don't like what's happening with a particular system of government, this is particularly hurtful to see children being abused. Are you voting? Are you lobbying? Are you trying to make it a direct effort to have something happen, or are you just complaining? Ultimately, if the people want change, they have to make it themselves.
Well, again, it is a story. Well, we can't stand to see one more, but there will be one more, and we all know it. Thanks a lot. As we said, it was a story we stumbled on when we were in Florida. Children taken away from their alcoholic mother by the state of Florida and placed in foster care, a system that has been under fire, as we've seen in the past few months. This is a story that doesn't shed a better light on that system, but does remind everyone how terribly endangered children can become. ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross has this report.
The oldest is Jesse. He's now 15, the leader.
That was you.
There's a set of twin brothers, Jordan and Joey. The freckled-faced one is Toby. And the youngest are also twins, Susanna and Robbie.
These children were tortured. These children were neglected. These children were abused.
This is from you for Mother's Day.
Now safe and adopted into the loving home of Kathy and Rod Rodriguez, the 6 are for the first time telling their story of the adults who they say tortured and beat them.
They would hit us with their hands or anything or with the belt.
You remember the belt?
That hurt.
Where the state of Florida put them was in this house, in the care of this woman, Jacqueline Lynch, who collected some $150,000 as a foster mother, even though 4 years earlier, one of her own children had been taken away from her by the state because of allegations of physical and sexual abuse in her home.
Time after time, the bells went off that this was a dangerous home.
For almost 2 years, no state caseworker ever came to inspect the Lynch home, about a 20-minute drive from the state offices, even though there are supposed to be visits once a month. What they would have found by simply walking down this hall was a small room, barren but for a few sheets, where the 6 children say they were locked up as soon as they returned home from school.
Most of the time we slept on the floor, or you wake up in the middle of the night shivering. It was really cold.
Cockroaches came out of the ground of the wall and out of the vents. It scared me a lot.
These children weren't fed. They were fed out of a bowl. One bowl where these children would have to get on their knees and eat like dogs.
And once locked in, there was no bathroom.
We'd have to wait until the morning.
So you probably wet your pants sometimes, huh?
Oh, yeah.
What would happen then?
She'd hit us.
Do you think most children live this way?
Yeah.
You do?
And even worse, several of the children described being taped into large plastic crates by the teenage son and then dumped into the swimming pool.
It was scary because you couldn't get out trying to hold your breath in, but you can't.
And you'd sink to the bottom of the pool?
Yeah.
The others stood by helplessly.
I just wanted to stop it, but I couldn't.
The Lynches told 2020 they had nothing to say about the 6 children that were once theirs.
They say that you tortured them.
Oh, I have nothing to say.
No. Don't take no damn pictures around here of me in there, okay? I'll break the damn thing on you in a heartbeat.
Mrs. Lynch, is there anything you want to say?
Camera taking pictures of me. You understand what I'm saying?
All right.
Well, then get the damn camera out of here.
All right. The children were rescued from the Lynches after calls to a child abuse hotline. To the outrage of many, she was permitted to plead no contest to just one misdemeanor account of child neglect and put on 1 year's probation in order to pay court costs of $140. And as for the state of Florida, the case was so shocking, state officials have now agreed to an out-of-court settlement of $5 million. The children's new parents say they'll need every penny of it to help overcome the physical and emotional battering they went through, Diane.
How did that plea take place?
It's astounding to everyone that's the only charge they brought was 1 count of child neglect. Despite police reports showing inhumane and dangerous conditions in the house, and none of the state workers who failed the children for so long, none that we can find has been disciplined or dismissed.
Well, again, it is a source of such outrage, and if you want to see more of Brian's report, please tune in tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for 2020. And thanks, Brian.